welcome back to another segment of Impact on Life. I'm your host, Greg Aidala, and with me today is the Times Union-owned Steve Barnes, who is a senior writer and restaurant columnist. Welcome, Steve Barnes. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. So, little back history on us is we met back in '03, back in a gin mill back in Albany, and we just
it'd be 2003, not 1923.
Yeah,
gin mill.
Yeah, 2003, and right. Yeah, the gin mill, and then we talked a fortnight later.
Now you've gone back to 1823.
Yeah. But no, and you've been a great supporter of mine, and I just think it's great that you came in here to do the show, and we're gonna have some fun talking about what you do with.
Well, thank you. And it is a little odd, as you mentioned, because we weren't just hanging out in a bar. As a matter of fact, we met in a bar, but then since, in your comedy career, I've interviewed you repeatedly for stories in the Times Union, because, when it comes to local comedy, you were a great promoter of it, and I happen to cover comedy. So over the years, I've interviewed you many, many times, interviewed the talent you've brought to town many times,
absolutely.
And now I'm sitting on the other side, and I'm terrified.
How does that feel? Oh, is that right?
He's terrified.
Folks, he's
yes.
terrified. Can you believe it? He is. But no, and that's why I appreciate all that support, and you have. You've been great covering not just the local comedy, as such I've done, and others, and just covering national. The acts that came in, like recently, the show right here at Proctors, Jim Gaffigan, and I think you're really in tune, and you have a keen wit about it, and it's great that you're such a supporter of it, and all the arts.
Well, it's what I've done for 20 years. People mostly know me now for my restaurant coverage because my blog, Table Hopping, gets significant traffic, upward of 400,000 visitors a month. So people think, oh, he's the food guy. Yeah. So if I review a show, whether it's theater or a concert or a comedy show, and I don't like it, they write in and say, what would the food guy know about comedy? Well, I've done comedy and theater and music way longer than I've done food.
Oh, absolutely. No, true, very true. And you can talk about the food that's thrown at the performers, too. Hey, I know what type of food
I only did that at you a couple of times, and the fruit was very soft.
The fruit's fine as long as there's no bottles. I never
No.
But let's talk more about that because of your interest, at the Times Union. TimesUnion.com/table hopping is Steve's blog, and you can you see him out and about town and write in to you about his passion for food, and that really starts. At least correct me if I'm wrong, but that's with your father.
Correct. Right here in Schenectady, about 4 blocks from Proctors. My father had a restaurant at the bottom. As he used to say, the slogan was at the bottom of State Street, at the top for fine dining. It was right across the street from Schenectady Community College. It was called the Oxbow Inn. It was open from 1975 to 1986 when he sold the restaurant because he realized he'd aged about 35 years in the 11 years he'd owned the restaurant. And I was very young. I was in elementary school when he opened it, and that was the basis for my food. It was a classic American sort of steak and seafood. And it was a long time before I came back to food on a professional basis, but that really did lay the groundwork for what I believe about food and about restaurant service. And that, while I love the arts and I will never change in my unwavering support of the arts, I have found that people engage in the arts, in the lively arts, as they used to say, maybe a couple of times a month if they're enthusiastic, but they eat every single day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things people want to talk about a lot, food has proven to be extremely generous to me in the size of the audience.
Sure, and then because of that, the communication factor, that is like the heart of the home is a kitchen.
Yes.
Someone gets together and you talk about food, and it is important. And being, I grew up Italian, and and forgive me for, we have a really small budget here.
Oh,
so do you want some goldfish or a juice box?
Is that
all right? I mean, that's all we really
that's
got.
That's not very Italian.
It's not Italian, but there is no budget. And
all right.
Well, we can have that after, but I just wanted to offer it because,
all right, thank you.
If you do want it, I can bust open a straw and give you a juice box.
Sure, we can settle in for a chat.
And first of all, next time we have an interview on camera, we should phone each other and see if we're going to wear black and blue.
Well, great minds and all.
That's true. Let's do this. I read your blog. I admire what you do. You're always out there. I think that at the Times Union, especially in the blog section, it's not to dismiss anyone's out there. I think there are very, very fine blogs out there. But you really offer something to the public. Like you say, look, I'm going out, I'm the Marines, I'm the front line. You might not like it, but this is how I genuinely feel, and and you're authentic about it, and no one can dismiss that.
Well, thank you. But more importantly than maybe what I think about a place or whether or not the pasta puttanesca lives up to its billing, I'm a news reporter.
Right.
People say, oh, he's a blogger, and sometimes I get a little defensive about that because a blogger, it really seems like, is somebody who sits in his mother's basement in his pajamas saying, oh, this is what was on the top of my head, or I thought about this. I'm a news reporter. I'm a journalist, one of whose venues is a blog. I publish online in the same way I publish in print, except just more often online. So I really value, instead of my opinions about places, the news value of it. Who's open, who's closed, special wine dinners, movements of chefs, things that are likely to affect the restaurant business. And I've also, because food is part of what I do, I've taken on talking about grocery stores. So I write about grocery stores. I was a big part of the discussions that were going on with Trader Joe's and whether or not it would come to the area, because that and being informative in news is what keeps people coming back to a blog. It's why they come back to a news website. It's because they know they can get the information they need, rather than just off the top of Steve's head about what he likes for a hamburger today. It's about who's open and who's closed, where you can get the news, and that's what I really believe the value of table hopping is the news that it provides about area food and restaurants and fine dining and even casual. Sit in a park with a sandwich. Where's a good place to get it?
Absolutely, sure. Now, let me ask you a question, because you were talking about restaurants and reporting honestly, and what you think that you expect. At 37. I work hard to spend my money and go out, is service. Is that when you're reporting on everything, tell me that's got to be, I see so much inept service when I go out, and it drives me nuts.
Well, let's put it this way. Great service can redeem mediocre food.
I agree with that.
But sensational food can only be harmed by mediocre or even middling service. So if you've got a fantastic waitress, think about it. People love diners. Diner food, best food you can get? Generally, probably not. Made with the best ingredients? Generally, probably not. But if you've got a perfect waitress who keeps your water glass full and keeps your coffee cup full, knows what you want when you come in, because on Thursdays you have the meatloaf, and she tells you a joke or she asks about your kids, you don't really care that this isn't the best food you've got. You got a good value that was delivered to you when it was hot, when it was supposed to be hot, or cold when it was supposed to be cold. The empty dishes were taken away in a timely manner, and so therefore you're going to exchange that service for some money. And you believe, on top of that, it's a diner. You leave 15%. No, it's a diner. You leave 25% because you love the waitress.
That's absolutely true. No, I agree. I do that. Sometimes I leave 30. No, I don't think it.
Well, we all know comedians make extraordinary amounts of money.
Yeah, huge.
So you can afford that.
And you can donate to the show by mailing Proctors. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
everybody else does.
I know, but because I'm curious about this, can you give me your top 3 restaurants in the Capital District?
I reviewed movies for. Watch me dodge the question.
Okay, yeah, I know. Look at this.
I reviewed movies for 10 years.
Barnes.
Not at all a politician, just proper context. That's like saying, who's your favorite comedian?
Well, I could say that, Bob Newhart.
Well, all right. Pardon me for ruining my setup here.
Oh, okay.
But I reviewed movies for 10 years, and I would say depends on the genre, the context, what I'm in the mood for. So, for restaurants, I can say that there are extraordinary restaurants if I'm willing to spend money and if I want a certain experience. But it's really hard to evaluate something if you can get, a $3.50 bowl of soup and a $2 beer and be satisfied, or if you're going to go out for an evening and spend $300 for 2 because you want that extraordinary service. You want the best possible wine list available to you, even if you're only going to pick one bottle off of that list of 700 or 800 choices. So it depends. And further context, in the last 10 years, the Capital Region's food has really grown exponentially. We have, while we still do have an entire continent that is non-represented locally. You can't get any African food locally made in any restaurant. You can't. There's nothing in Africa.
Well, is that what someone offered? I read your the New Year's resolution that was this past Sundays, and listen, was one of the recommendations that someone liked to say? Is that what? All right.
There was a Moroccan restaurant that lasted for about 6 months.
Yeah.
But that's closer to an Arabic food in terms of the larger portions of Africa. Ethiopian food is certainly highly sought after. We don't have that because
do they have food in Ethiopia? Because what kind of a custom would that be? Here's a bowl of air. I mean, we got to help those people.
Yes. So if we're going to echo Sam Kinison, we can say move to where the food is.
Yeah.
All right, back on track. There are some extraordinary restaurants. Angelo Mazzone is one of the area's top restaurateurs.
Yeah.
He knows how to run restaurants. He knows how to hire good people and great chefs. His Angelo's 677 Prime is at the top in food and service. Yono's in Albany is extraordinary when it comes to service, spectacular wine list. The two most exciting places to eat in Albany that I can think of now are the Wine Bar and Bistro on Lark Street and the new Capital City Gastro Pub on New Scotland Avenue. And both of those, it's the same chef and the same owner, Kevin Everleth and Jason Baker. They own both of them. You know, up in Saratoga Springs, Max London does really fine work. Also, John LaPasta at Maestro's at the Van Dam. And just last year, we went into a big new space.
On Broadway. It's gorgeous. That is such a great space. I did. I sat out on the deck last night.
They sat out on the deck. And they sat out. People were sitting out on the deck until December.
Good for them.
How much they really want to be as part. So we have gotten to the point where, you know, somebody asked me about regional food. You know, they wondered, you know, do we have a cuisine like buffalo wings or beef on weck, or New York City's identified with bagels and pizza. You know, we don't really have that here. But one of the things that we are developing is, like other parts of the country, a stress on local ingredients, fresh ingredients, things that are made and grown and created by our farmers and our other producers in our area, and that's what distinguishes us.
Absolutely, and it's very important that we do support that, and you know,
and pay extra for it.
And
because sometimes it does cost more, because if you're an independent farmer, it costs you a lot more than a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that is producing thousands of head of cattle a week.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it first, right here. Impact. Impact on Life with Steve Barnes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our time. But listen, I want to thank Steve Barnes from the Times Union coming in. You can learn more about what Steve's up to and his take on local restaurants and always follow, and he'll give you the details and upcoming events that occur all over the Capital District by visiting the timesunion.com/table hopping. So again, for Impact on Life, I'm your host, Greg Aidala. We'll see you next time.
Oh, that was fun. And anything about food, as I said, is always good. What's your favorite cuisine, Greg?
I am biased toward Italian. How about yourself?
Oh, well, I love pizza. The idea of the crust, the base, and the cheese, and anything in between works. I just love that idea.
It makes you happy?
Yeah.
What more could you ask for?
I know. The pounds is what I don't like too much.
The pounds.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunately the wrap of our show, but we will be seeing you next week.
Yes, absolutely. And to reach out, you know, feel free to contact us and email us at impact@proctors.org or find us on Facebook at Impact Show. And before we leave, I just, you know, on behalf of the entire staff here, we want to say goodbye to Richa, who is heading back to her homeland of India.
Thank you.
And she was a real catalyst to get this show together and to bring it to you folks here. So thank you so much from everyone. I'll speak for everyone. Thank you so much for putting this show together.
Greg.
Yes,
Thank
and best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure working with everybody here. And we'll be back with another great show next week of Impact. So stay tuned.
Yes.